Hey, you guys, it's your girl Jay, and happy Sunday, y'all. Hopefully everybody's doing well on this Sunday. Actually, I stayed up last night working the graveyard shift or the late shift. I didn't go to sleep till about 6 this morning, so I'm having a late start. Well, not really. I guess I'm right on time, but I wanted to talk about today's topic as I jump back into this new year and just pretty much got out of a chat with the Lord, and I wanted to talk about pretty women, pretty people, actually, that we ought to pray. We ought to pray because we are prey. It's taken me years, y'all, to realize that I was even an attractive or pretty woman. I didn't know that. What people don't realize is that most attractive and or pretty people, let me just stick with the pretty word, the P word, right? The forbidden P word. That most people don't realize that most pretty people don't even believe that they're pretty, you know. And this is not from a vain place. Most people think that it would be because a woman feels like, oh, I need, some Botox. I need my nose fixed. I need to get a BBL. They think that if a pretty woman doesn't think she's pretty at all, it's because she feels like she has what's it called when people see themselves, their bodies in a way that it's distorted. That's what people would assume. And so, of course, they would then go in the way of calling most pretty people conceited or vain because they're looking to be perfect. That's the assumption, is what I've gathered over the years. But the truth is, uh, pretty people don't necessarily believe they're pretty, not because they feel like they have to fix some external something on them or in them or around them. They feel as though they're not pretty because of possible mistreatment, is what it is, because it's this thing right here. If I'm so pretty, if I'm so attractive, or I'm so, again, pretty, then why have people been so dismissive or mean or downplay my efforts or cruel or, and again, for me personally, right? I can only speak for me. I didn't realize till years later the treatment was coming from jealousy. See, that was the last thing on my mind, especially for those that know my story. Here I am, a woman who was raised by my great grandparents because the story in the family was that my mother did not want me. So here I am, a young girl, young little girl. At the age of 8 months, my great grandmother takes me in and she raises me. I get the love and treatment. Most people say I was the spoiled one, spoiled great granddaughter in the family. So I was loved, is what I'm saying, right? For at least the first 5, 7 years of my life, I know I was loved. Never equated that love to the fact that I was pretty. My male cousins in my family, for the most part, you know, treated me pretty decent and was extremely protective over me. My brothers the same way, right? Again, never equated this to possibly the way I looked. I genuinely thought it's because naturally they just love me, because that's what, when people love you, they love you. They don't care how you look. They love you, right? It's just, that's love, I guess. Anyway, and so here I am, a woman who was not raised by her mother, was not raised by her father, her parents, her biological parents, and yet her grandparents did not raise her, but her great grandparents was took her in. So my great grandmother made it a point to let me know that I was loved. However, I did struggle, obviously, in some areas of abandonment, right? So throughout that, never did I think, never did I think people were treating me a certain way because I was pretty. I believe they were treating me that way because I was the neglected or abandoned child. And I was a nobody. I'm just being frank this Sunday morning, right? So, or Sunday afternoon. So I say all that to say this: if it wasn't for God or my faith, I'm going to go there. If it wasn't for me sitting to myself, by myself, even as a child, and feeling the presence of a loving kind, what I like to believe what was God, presence of spirit or source, and then of course my great grandmother allowing me that space as a child, I would not be able to. I don't think I would have made it this far, y'all. I really don't. Because when I look over my life and see that people don't know you when they see you, they only see the external. So when you get a pretty person or a pretty woman that goes through things, you got two types of people. We got more than two, but the basics are this. Either I've had people that would sympathize with me and become overly protective of me. And again, we're talking about childhood through teen years. Overly protective of me. Um, but as I got older, and of course you get older, you get out on your own, things that kind of way. And of course, people look at, when you reach a certain age, there's no more protection in the sense of, that in which a child needs or a teenager. You get what I'm saying? So you're pretty much on your own once you reach, 18, we're going literal here. You get out into the world, you got to figure it out yourself, so to speak, right? And of course, because I didn't necessarily have the biological parents or the guidance of a mother and father in that sense, I struggled a little bit more. And there is nothing worse, in my opinion, than a pretty woman who struggles to figure out who's who and what's what. Because again, you're not seeing yourself as a pretty person. You don't think it's, in other words, again, you're not thinking that the mistreatment is because of the way you look. You're not thinking it is just that basic. I've never been a basic woman, let me say that, or basic woman. I always say I'm spirit woman first. I think I have that in my profile right here at YouTube. I think it's all over my social media. So I've never been a basic woman. I've never seen things just as they are on the surface. I've always dived deep. It's probably the Aquarius in me, but I've always dived deep on why people do what they do. And for the life of me, y'all, I never came to a full conclusion until later on in life that I had to go through a lot of pain and suffering and losses to understand that pretty women get no sympathy. Less sympathy, I should say. Get less sympathy because for whatever the reason, I think what people think too is this. Well, if I look the way you look, and keep in mind, as I'm saying pretty, I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, cup of coffee, cup of boba tea. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm not everybody's glass of water, period. I know that. I really do. Even though, I know I'm in a business where many men desire me. I've been paid for my looks, that part. I am not everybody's cup of tea. I know I'm alternative. I didn't always have piercings and tattoos, right? So I know I didn't always have my nails. I know that I stand out even the more so now, And so I say all that to say, if it wasn't for prayer, if it wasn't for me going to what I believe is my Father in heaven and that accompanies me down here on earth to ask and seek questions, seeking out answers. Why am I either going through this? Why are human beings this way? What's going on, God? What's going on? When you ask the questions to source, what is going on in me and around me, you will get your answers. The beautiful thing that I like about God, I'm grateful that He didn't give me the answers all at once because I would have lost my mind. I had to go through some things, gradually get it, and every day of my life, no matter how old I get, I will always be the student when it comes to gathering and understanding and knowledge of what is going on in me and around me. The greatest thing that I would ever want to accomplish in life is better understanding and better knowledge of self and of what is going on around me so that I can be a more productive spirit and or citizen in this thing called life, period, point blank. But going back to what I would call the shallow shit is that people will not show less, they show pretty women less sympathy than anybody else. All the sympathy that I got as a child or empathy, I would like to believe it's because I was a child, kind of going back to what I said earlier. Once you reach a certain age, and you're that pretty person, it seems like you now and again. Let me put this in here. I know not everybody's experience as a pretty person or pretty woman is the same. I know that let's just call it out. Shira Seven. She hasn't yet to tell a whole lot of her upbringing or story and things that kind of way, right? But I would imagine that Shira Seven is a pretty woman who did not have to go through much. You know what I'm saying? She probably had a decent upbringing. I think she had her mother and her father around, and you know what I mean. It might have been some jealousy, but I don't think she's been through. I'm not judging her. I'm just saying that she's never. I haven't heard her come out and say she's been beat or she's an SA survivor. I don't think that's her story. And so, just using her as an example, I think for her, in other words, there's many pretty women that um, the beautiful thing that, or the irony about Shira is because of her spiritual side. I think that's the thing that keeps her. I think that even though I'm saying pretty women ought to pray, I also think pretty women ought to practice. Ought to practice whatever spirituality. In fact, most people believe, there's not most, but there are some people believe, even men believe that pretty women are witches. That's a whole other topic. I talked about it a few years ago on my TikTok. You know, that attractive women, most times men say, okay, she's a witch. She lures in men by her beauty. And if you get into the way of talking about the archetypes and being the siren and all these things, right? Anywho, pretty women ought to pray because we are prey. And people will sit back and wait for an opportunity for that pretty woman or pretty man, especially even in the LGBT community. You got men. So this is just not just applied to pretty women, it's applied to pretty men too. You got men who are considered pretty, and this all goes back into their youth and their teen years. And there are other men in that community that will exploit them and use them and be jealous of them and can't wait until they have their downfalls or go through something, you know? So again, I put emphasis. It's not really for just pretty women, it's for pretty for pretty people, period. You know, we ought to stay prayed up because you don't know why people want you around. And then don't let you be pretty with a personality. That part. Don't let you be pretty with character. Don't let you be pretty with integrity. Don't let you be pretty with a little bit of standards. You ain't got to have a whole lot of standards. Don't let you be pretty with a little bit of standards because then all of a sudden now you're bougie. And you're like, what? Just because I want to be treated with respect, now I'm bougie. So it's always an extra. Pretty people go through, I think, extremities on either scale. On either scale, because unfortunately, we live in a world where people see you first and judge you based on what they see. And again, I don't claim to be in fact, as I get older, I see my face changing. It's the medication. So some days I'm more puffier than others. We're talking about the external stuff, as I spoke of earlier. Sometimes I can tell that I'm aging. It's what it is. That's life. So I'm grateful that I do have personality and character, and I'm a good person, quote unquote, right? Because that's going to sustain me a little bit more, I think. Ain't nothing like a pretty woman when she gets older and she's, a bitch, because then now her whole face changes and now she becomes to look like a witch, more in the sense of how the media displays what witches look like. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes there's a place in the Bible where it said that God will give you up for a reprobated mind. I also mean that when you are ugly towards other people, God will allow you to become ugly physically. You will contort into that thing. So again, back to being pretty and praying because you are the prey. You have to know, pretty girl and pretty man, that people most times are not coming into you. It's the same thing I tell my daughter. I was looking at my daughter's pictures on Instagram the other day, and I was like, just binge going through her stuff, just stalking her page, right? And just looking at her, and I thought to myself, separating her from me, and she looks like a combination of me and her father. Her father's Puerto Rican, she's Puerto Rican, and I was like, my baby is beautiful. Like I was like, she's pretty. She's 26, so I'm like, she's pretty, she's sexy, there's an innocence there, there's she has such a soft, sweet uh, tone in her voice. She's feminine, that part. She's fit. I'm just proud of her. But I also know that everything that I see in her, others see in her. And oh my God, I'm not going to get teary eyed on this audio, but I pray for my daughter's protection. I pray that she prays. I pray that she prays, over her own self and over her own life. I pray that for my daughter, that she has a relationship with Source. She has a relationship with God. She has an intimate relationship with God, so that she is aware sooner than I was. Because the difference between me and my daughter, and I often tell her this, is that she has a mother and I didn't. Okay, so it's an amazing, amazing thing. The irony to my story is that my mother's pretty. My mother is very, very pretty. Freckles, Italian mixed, and we look very similar. And she's short, stacked. She was what back in the day people would call a brick house, and I have to throw this in the bucket, light skin, attractive, very attractive woman. And she has gone through hell and high water. And I truly believe that because of what my mother went through with men and jealousy in the family, is why the mental illness, and I'm being frank on this Sunday afternoon, has either caught up with her, or why she had issues, not just not raising me. I just was the only child she didn't raise, me and another sister. But I have a total of 15 siblings that my mother did not raise because of her own struggles. And I love my mother dearly. I hold nothing against her, because I understand. I've always understood that when I would look at my mother, the times that I met her, and I'd say, I can tell. Oh, I know what's going on here. This is a person who was abused and hurt by people she trusted for no other reason but because she was the prettiest in the group. So again, I pray that the pretty woman and the pretty man continues to pray and asks God to give them discernment. Because when we go through stuff, and I'll close this out, when we go through stuff, it's like people will sit on the sidelines and wait for our downfall and wait for our demise, so that they have the opportunity to do one or two things. Either kick us when we're down, or number two, look at that as an opportunity now that they can either, I don't want to say take our place, if you will, but destiny swap, as some might call it. They might say, okay, now she's down and out. Now they're going through something. This is my time to show them up. Never in my life have I waited for somebody's downfall so I can get the attention, to have the attention. I've always had it. Pretty people always have attention. It's just what it is. I don't mean to sound, I don't know, however you take it how you guys need to, whoever is listening to this, and feel triggered when I say pretty people. The last thing that we want really is attention, because we've had it all our lives. Good, bad, ugly, strange, weird, bizarre, exploited. I am a survivor of many things. And the sad truth for me is understanding that a lot of those things I had to survive was for no other reason, was because I was attractive. For no other reason was because I was pretty. And when I would go through something and then go to tell someone what I'm going through, it's like it was fake sympathy. You know how there's a thing called fake outrage? It was fake sympathy. Fake empathy is really, fake. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And to me, I feel like the worst thing a pretty woman can do is go to a basic, average looking, if you will, y'all, woman, and tell her that she's been abused by a man. I have to throw that in the bucket. Because when I say go through, that's a place where I'm a survivor of that too, where you go through domestic violence, be it physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is, and you go to somebody, your bestie, your friend, your whoever, and you expose that and you tell that to them, and either one or two things, either they say, oh, that's nothing, they'll downplay it like it's really no big deal, because maybe they themselves have gone through it. So they're glad for you to be a part of the the story now. There's some people that just wait for you to go through something, so now you got common ground. This is why you can see some pretty women hanging out with certain women, and you're like, why is she hanging out with her? It's because they have a common trauma bond. He beat her, and she was beat. That. And so now they're not really besties, because the truth is that woman that's still not the pretty woman, she's still going to be jealous of the pretty girl, even if they both experience the same types of abuse, same types of misjudgment, same types of whatever they've gone through. That the one that is not the pretty one in the group is still going to look at that pretty girl and say, mm. In other words, there's some people who are so jealous and so of the pretty girl that even when the person tells them what they've just gone through, they show no empathy, no sympathy, and they wish that the circumstances was even worse. That, as if to say, oh, that's all he did was hit you? He didn't cheat on you too? Damn, I was hoping he would cheat on you too. All he did was just hit you. And of course, they're not saying that per se. I've been there. I've looked at other women's face when I've told them certain things, and either they'll be like, girl, yeah, I've been through it too, or they'll give me this look like, damn, that's it? I was hoping for more. And it ain't funny, y'all. It's not funny worth a damn, but I'm telling you the Jesus Christ truth this Sunday. Pretty women ought to pray, because we are prey. No matter which way you flip it, we are. And it's taken me years to realize this truth. Anyways, you guys, bye for now. You will hear me or see me in the next one. One love, kisses.